When you're looking at integrating GA4 to your e-commerce store, there are a few things to consider, and one of them is whether you're going to go with client or server-side tagging. They're slightly different. So when it comes to client-side tagging, that's sort of the most common option. Usually when we have native integrations through Shopify or WooCommerce or Magento, that is what we'll be using. And client-side tagging is essentially sending data through the browser. So what happens is we might have our e-commerce store where we have our purchase, it houses our order value, product names, and user ID. And that information is actually sent through the browser through third-party cookies. That information is sent from the checkout page, so the subtotal of the order and the particular products purchased within that order. That is all sent through the browser itself. That is then sent through, in the case of GA4, through to Google Tag Manager. And Google Tag Manager, as we've discussed, is what will transfer that data layer through to GA4. Now, the problem here is that when we then send that information through to Google Analytics, or even in the case of Meta, Klaviyo, TikTok, Google Ads, any other platform that requires data from your Shopify store on a per user basis, our challenge is that we do face some issues with the connection between the browser and the Google Tag Manager. So third-party cookies can be blocked by particular browsers. Safari recently phased it out, and we know Google Chrome is phasing it out as well. Ad blockers and VPNs can also cause issues with this connection. And of course, any customers browsing on privacy or incognito mode can also break this connection. And what results from that is about a 10 to 20% data discrepancy with Shopify. So you might notice that if you were to calculate your Shopify revenue in the same way GA does, and you have to do that manually, so looking at incoming revenue only, no returns, gross revenue plus that includes shipping and tax, which is how Google Analytics by default will track your revenue, there might be a 10 to 20% discrepancy with Shopify. And you might notice that through your current integration with Universal Analytics, where there's that discrepancy. Now, the way we can address that is through what's known as server-side tagging. You might have heard about this through Facebook. When iOS 14 was introduced, they introduced the Conversions API Pixel, which was a way of gathering a little bit more data through the server instead, in order to somewhat counteract and the impacts of iOS 14, and also to address the challenges with the development of the privacy-focused world. So server-side tagging is a little bit more of a reliable and accurate option, but it does take a little bit of setup. So same deal, we have our Shopify store with all of our purchase information and our product names and user ID. We also then, but instead of going through the browser, we will send that information directly to Google Tag Manager from the Shopify store. And that's done through a Google Cloud server. That server is where your data is held. It is first-party data. It's not third-party. So it is owned by you. There's no security issues around that. And then from there, we're not actually having any issues between, say, Google Tag Manager or the Shopify store with third-party cookies, ad blockers, and incognito mode, because we are actually bypassing the browser in this instance. And then from there, we can send all our information from the cloud server through to Google Analytics, Meta, Klaviyo, all the other platforms that we use if you have server-side tagging set up for those as well. So when we look at the benefits and the drawbacks of each of these options, on the client side option, we are obviously collecting that data from a user's browser through a tag in the code. This is cheaper and a lot easier to set up. Often it's just a case of copy pasting your information or your tag ID through into the native integration. So it does tend to be the most popular option. There are obviously very few, if no, ongoing costs with that. It's usually included in the platform you're using, or it's relatively cheap and easy to integrate. But we do have that 10 to 20% discrepancy issue simply because we are passing that information through the browser. We also might have some performance issues from the tracking script Every time we have to load another script in the site, that will cause a slight delay on your store. It might be a very minor issue to you, but if you are looking at high performance, fast performance for both conversion rate and SEO purposes, that might be something worth considering. And then there is a security risk with third-party data. So obviously, your terms and your privacy policy will include information about this risk to your customers and how we collect data. But there will be a security risk. There's always a security risk when our data is actually held by a third party and not owned by us. On the server side, we have obviously more accuracy because we're sending that data through from Google Analytics to Google Analytics, bypassing the browser entirely because we're using a cloud server to do that. We are seeing better performance and SEO from server-side integrations, only slightly, and it really depends on your unique setup, but that obviously is addressed in the server-side option. And again, it's first-party data which is owned by you. So if you are concerned about privacy, particularly for EU-based clients where they have GDPR requirements, this might be an option that you need to consider. First-party data is owned by you, and there are no or very few security risks associated with that. But it can be costly to set up, and there can be some ongoing server costs. So those ongoing costs can be quite limited, especially when you're looking at Google, and it depends on Google Cloud Server. And it really depends on the kind of traffic to your site, the volume of data that you're processing. This isn't an as extreme ongoing cost in my experience, but it is something to consider. And there is often an upfront cost to set this up and set up the Google Cloud Server.